Hey everyone, JJ here, and welcome back to the channel. June of 2025, we saw the newest expansion of the LEGO Harry Potter Hogwarts Castle system with the new main tower set. What was really cool is the interior of the set gave us the challenges from the end of the Philosopher's Stone. So in this video, we're going to look at the various builds and rooms for the challenges in this tower, and we're going to compare them to the challenge task from the 2021 Hogwarts Castle system, as well as way back in the 2001 Harry Potter Hogwarts Castle system. We will also take a look at the 2018 Mirror of Erised. The 2018 line of LEGO Harry Potter didn't really touch on the challenges at the end of the first book and film. However, we'll compare the three sets and then look at that mirror as well. So let's jump right in now and take a look at some of these challenges. First up, we have the third floor corridor. And none of these builds is actually on the third floor. However, with the 2021 version, I guess you can customize this onto the third floor. We will take a look at the fluffy figures. This is kind of one piece in 2001, and we'll see the brick built versions as well as we move forward. And we will also kind of look at how the third floor corridor fits within the system of the challenges. Some are a little bit less thought out than others. However, let's jump right in now and take a look at Fluffy and the third floor corridor. As we get started with the Fluffy encounter, the third floor corridor, of course, I'm going to point out that the original 2001 version, it came with kind of this set, including the Devil's Snare. We see that again with the 2001. However, because that set was so easy to customize, the Devil's Snare kind of detaches from it really easily. And then, of course, in the newest, this year's 2025, we see it's actually part of the castle build. All right, so looking here at the original 2001 set, it comes with this nice staircase, as well as kind of just a little doorway. Even though the 2001 LEGO Harry Potter castle sets connected, it was a very minor connection. It didn't nearly make fully fleshed out or closed buildings like we see today in the 2025 version. And then, of course, it gives us Fluffy here. And Fluffy is standing atop a trapdoor. And there's no harp build in this, but we do get a flute, which is more book accurate. 2021 gave us this very cramped tower, I guess you could say, corridor for the Fluffy encounter. Crammed in there was, of course, the harp, and then we see Fluffy able to stand up or sit down. I removed that support piece in there. You can see Fluffy. One thing that was cool about this Fluffy was that it had multiple face prints to either be awake or sleeping, and Fluffy was also standing atop a trapdoor that you can see there. And because the 2021 Hogwarts Castle system was all about interchangeability and kind of being able to move rooms around, you could adjust this so Devil's Snare was underneath of it, and the Devil's Snare did come with this set as well. And of course, that takes us to the newest 2025 third floor corridor, Fluffy's Encounter. Very similar to 2021, we of course see the Fluffy build and the Heart build. Fluffy is less brick built here than we saw in 2021, but more brick built than in 2001. And similarly, Fluffy is standing atop a trapdoor. And I do want to point out that kind of being this corridor, it actually has quite a bit of room in here with that window there on the back when Fluffy's removed, which is not something we saw in 2021. And then there was really no walls for the 2001 version to compare that to. And here we can see the three Fluffy figures side by side. I was actually really surprised. I hadn't realized that the newest one was so small, as I hadn't necessarily compared it to the other ones earlier. But you can see in 2001, it was just a single piece. You had to add these heads on, but the actual build for the body was a single piece. This was a far different from what we saw in 2021, where it was very much brick built. And we saw what I didn't like. Lots of different colors were used here, which really made this feel like a kind of a little beast of a build. And then we see this little guy. Most of the body is a sculpted piece. However, we do see the brick built components here around the head and neck. And while I actually do quite like this build, something about the face printing seems a little juvenile, almost bear-like, and less dog-like. And while I did like how the 2021 version had the multiple face prints where you can have it sleeping, if you look at it from this, or awake, it gives us this weird guy in the middle who's kind of half awake, half asleep. I bought two of these sets. I originally was planning to buy a third one on sale so I could have, all asleep or all awake Fluffy heads. But it just never happened. And because it's just not my favorite Fluffy build, I don't think I needed to invest in additional pieces. Comparing the three iterations of Fluffy, I do think my favorite is still the original 2001. Even though there's literally no detailing and the legs are a different color, It definitely, for me, captures the character best. You have those really big heads. They look a little scary, but they look like dog heads. This is something that, unfortunately, why I like the brick built version we got in 2025. Um, that something about the heads just don't work for me. I like they kind of included like the Velociraptor mouthpiece there, and I actually don't mind the brick build. It seems to work a little bit better for me than earlier 2021 version. But especially looking at it next to the 2001 version, it just looks not as menacing. And without trash talking too much, I will say this brick built version for me is just it's the coloring, right? Maybe if everything wasn't a similar shade of brown, it could work a little bit better. I mean, even the tail looks so bizarre. But this just looks like a fluffy, if it was like a mechanical beast and not so much, an actual three-headed dog. And of course, next we will compare the instruments used to lull Fluffy to sleep. Of course, like I said, in the original 2001, we see the flute. This is book accurate. I like it. I actually think there's some really cool printing there on the flute, especially there with the owl. And this is not something we see very common in Lego at all. I'm really surprised they included the printing here and didn't just give us this kind of wand piece that was supposed to be designed as a flute. But I was really happy we got that. And then we have the two harp builds. The one there in the middle is actually from 2021. I say that because it's significantly better than the 2025 version. And in general, the 2021 wave didn't do a lot of things better. But the harp is something that I think it's much stronger. Even though they have that sticker piece there for the strings, I just like the way this harp build looks better. It's a little bit bigger, which is fine. But some of the angles in the new 2025 harp just seems strange to me. Um, and even though there are some weird connection points there for the 2021 version, I do prefer that compared to the two. And the last thing we'll compare between the three third floor corridor sets, of course, is the actual third floor corridor. So we see, of course, in 2001, I like that we had this staircase leading up to this room with the door, but there wasn't actually much outside of the actual trap door here in the corridor, which was a little disappointing. It was similarly disappointing in 2021 because it was so cramped and fluffy in there. But I do really like the castle build in the back with some of those windows. But for me, the best one is certainly the newest 2021. I mean, sorry, the newest 2025. The room, because mostly it's connected to the entire castle set, which really makes it stand out. So that is what I think for the actual rooms. And can we just talk about how in 2021, when they included this fried chicken in the corner, that was just, I mean, maybe it was a funny Lego reference. It just didn't land for me. It seemed kind of a cheap way out for an overpriced set. For me, it's wild that the 2001 version is still my favorite for this scene. To be fair, the third floor corridor is actually my favorite Lego Harry Potter set from the original wave in 2001. And I think it really stands up still with the staircase. And I like the flute reference to the film. Remember, the sets were designed and released before the movie came out, and so some of the features from the Lego Harry Potter sets are from the book, but they had been changed for the film that they didn't know originally. So that's why we have the flute in 2001, where we don't get the harp until the much later versions as well. The second task for the end of the Philosopher's Stone, we're going to jump right in and take a look at the Devil's Snare. For me, the 2001 version of Devil's Snare does a really nice job. Of course, we have this trap door that you have the figures jump in, and underneath of that is the Devil's Snare. What's cool is if you kind of keep this Devil's Snare opened and you have your character jump down, it will actually kind of trap the character or characters if you have multiple going at once into the Devil's Snare, and you kind of lift it up and down until you reopen it and then see if the character can make its way out of the Devil's Snare. So that was a really fun interactive play feature that they included here for the original 2001 version of the Devil's Snare. I will also point out that the original third floor quarter Devil's Snare portion, it came with this blue flame, which of course Hermione uses to illuminate the chamber, so the Devil's Snare retreats and the character is able to get out. As a kid, I thought this was the coolest piece. Having a flame piece in blue was like the most unique thing. I mean, there weren't a ton of recolors of Lego in 2001, so this really stood out in my collection. We do see a Devil's Snare chamber that also comes with the fluffy encounter with the 2021 version of the Hogwarts Castle system. And as you can see, it is that bone and these three black pieces that I guess represent the Devil's Snare. They don't move. It was overall very weak. One of the reasons this third floor quarter set was so bad was because it came with these two pieces of the Fluffy's room, of course, as well as the area for the double snare, and you could lift the door and the characters can fall into the double snare, but then you had to make the kind of another one of the chambers this set came with underneath. But then it was also a roof piece, so then the box displayed them next to each other, so it was just really confusing how you were supposed to interact with this. Is it supposed to go underneath of it? Is it supposed to go next to it? Obviously, for the story, it has to be underneath of it. But the way the set was released did not really work well for me, and the detailing is just terrible there. And of course, the Devil Snare for the newest 2025 main tower set is its own little chamber here. Unlike the Room of Winged Keys or the Wizard's Chest, you can't remove this from the castle. And again, that makes sense because you have this trapdoor that opens up and then you fall. If you notice on the top of the trapdoor, there are some grass and leaf pieces. And the reason why is there's a really cool hidden play feature here in the back that lets kind of the Devil's Snare send the characters down. Looking inside the chamber, there isn't a ton going on, but I do like how we have some additional grass pieces or plant pieces as well as two large sticker pieces of the various vines here in the chamber. So for me, that works much better than what we saw in 2021. I don't really think there's a lot more to compare about these sets. The original and the newest, of course, have a lot more detailing and just details in the chamber itself outside of the double snare, where we only got that bone from 2021. I still love this play feature from the original version, and I just wish we would have seen that somehow incorporated a bit more in the new 2025 main tower double snare set. Once again, with the Devil Snare, I really felt like the 2001 iteration got it kind of wrong. And it's really close for me between the 2001 and the new 2025 Devil Snare, which I think is the best. I do like the play feature a ton here with the original 2001, but the way it's hidden in the back of the castle build works really well here for the castle. It's a toss up, but I still think I'm going with the original 2001 Devil Snare with the third floor corridor set. Next up is the Room of Winged Keys, keeping in mind that the 2021 Hogwarts Castle system does not have Room of Winged Keys. So we're just going to look at the 2001 and 2025 versions. Next, we will compare the Room of Winged Keys. And like I said, we've only seen that in 2001 and the newest 2025. There was no Room of Winged Keys in the 2021 version of the end of the challenges. And unlike the Devil's Snare, the Room of Winged Keys does remove from the bottom of the main tower. Looking at the original 2001 version, it's very similar to how many of the sets were at this time. Just kind of like a big open room with additional play features. One thing I do like, of course, we see the broomstick there on the left, and I also like that there's a door. And I say that because your characters come from the Devil's Snare into this Room of Winged Key chamber. You have some flames. There is a spider that can fold down. And then at the top here is where you have your winged keys. So essentially, Harry needs to get on his broom and catch one of the keys. And hidden behind one of the keys is going to be the correct key, the silver key, kind of with the blue feathers that you need to actually put into the door to open it to move to the next task. We, of course, get a much smaller version of the room keys for the new 2025 version. One thing I do like is you have this broom and you can have Harry on the broom. And if you kind of pretend that he's being chased or chasing the keys kind of in a circle here until he grabs the right one. And this is kind of the Room of Winged Keys. It's kind of small and compact, not a ton going on here. In looking here underneath the main bottom of the main tower, one thing that's really disappointing about the Room of Winged Keys, of course, is the fact that there's actually not a door separating this chamber from the Wizard's Chest. So it's unclear to me why you need the key. Can't you just walk over to the Wizarding Chest? Overall, I'm happy they made the Room of Winged Keys. I'm happy they remade the Room of Winged Keys. Neither is particularly standout among the challenges at the end of the Sorcerer's Stone. So they're just kind of a filler to play out all the different scenes. Neither of these, I would say, is a make or break set within the castle system to end this Sorcerer's Stone placing. For me, it was really a shame that the Room of Winged Keys was not included in the 2021 Hogwarts Castle system. It also met my expectations when I found out the main tower set was going to have the challenges. It was really, really high. And unfortunately, I do think it fell just a little bit short. And like I said, it's possible that my expectations were too high. I love that you can, interact and interchange this room with the Great Hall or other parts of the main tower. But just like with Fluffy's Encounter and Devil's Snare, I would say my favorite is the Room of Wing keys that came with the original 2001 Lego Harry Potter Castle Wave. Next, we'll take a look at the Wizard's Chess. What's really interesting is these are three very different sets. With the original Wave in 2001, it was just kind of a side part of the Room of Wing keys. Then we got a fully fleshed out, full size chessboard with kind of the wizarding chess pieces in 2021, which this is the one instance where they really went above and beyond. And then we got kind of this smaller version, kind of like a 4x4 build here. You can still put Ron Weasley there on the knight. But let's jump right in now and compare the three versions of the Wizard's Chess. The next task, and this is one we see in all three iterations, is going to be the Wizarding Chess. For the original 2001 Wave, the Wizard's Chess is just kind of a side build from the Room of Wing keys. We essentially just get a 3x3 board here on the floor with some flames and this thing that I never understood even as a kid exactly. I'm guessing it's the queen. It has a crown there. I didn't understand why it didn't get a proper minifigure head, just kind of a round head. Pretty weak in the grand scheme of the challenges from the end of the first book and film. Yeah, and so that's what you got. With that being said, of course, with the 2021 version of the Wizarding Chess, we get a fully fleshed out, playable Wizard's Chess. It was really cool to get all the different pieces and be able to build them out in minifigure scale. Of course, Ron can still be placed on top of the knight, and you can actually play out some of that scene. This is, like I said, fully playable as a chess set. Of course, the sizing, I guess it's a minifigure scale as the characters are on the board. However, it's not in minifigure scale in terms of how this could possibly fit into a castle. But all in all, it was really cool they made this decision. This was its own set, and it was really neat to see a Harry Potter chess set. And it was smart for them to do it around the same time they were releasing sets for the tasks at the end of the first film. And similar to the Room of Wing keys, the Wizarding Chest is removable from the bottom of the main tower. This actually doesn't open up like many of the other removable sets, but it is essentially just a 4x4 grid here where you can see there are 4 black and 4 white pieces, and there we see Ron on the knight. This is, in my opinion, a good balance between the two versions. We saw a very small one in 2001, and then a fully sized playable chess set in 2021. And so this feels more of a balance of you're trying to reenact the scenes in minifigure scale without actually playing chess. This can fit in the castle as it does, and your characters can kind of stand around this little room. And I do like the use of the flame pieces, which we also saw in the other two. And I'm happy to say we finally have this 2021 Hogwarts Castle system being the best at something, and that is the Wizard's Chest. Obviously, this doesn't fit into the Hogwarts Castle in any way. I guess you can customize a build around it. So in that way, I guess it loses some points. But I really like that the designers included kind of the flames around the edges. It kind of brought it in a little bit more in the Harry Potter universe, and it is minifigure scale. Looking at the other two, which are much more similar comparisons, and I think I like next best the new 2025 version. There isn't a ton going on here, but this is actually what I think I would want. Um, it's probably too hard to get this many figures into a scale that can fit into a castle. So this is a really happy compromise for me. So I'm happy with that. And what is this, right? Like, what is it? Now we're going to look at kind of the final challenge that's really only represented in the original 2001 wave of Lego Harry Potter. So really we're going to be looking at the various examples of the Mirror of Erised, how it's existed across the various themes with the Lego Harry Potter Hogwarts Castle systems. And of course, last up, we will look at the final challenge or the Mirror of Erised. We saw two iterations of this in the original 2001 wave. We did not see this in 2021 at all. However, we did get it with the 2018 Great Hall, so we'll take a look at that. And of course, at the very top of the main tower set is where we are going to see the Mirror of Erised, and we'll take a look at that as well. Before we take a look at the mirror, I just want to talk about how this $10 set from the original wave of Lego Harry Potter was one of my favorites. And long before alternate face prints were really a thing, we got this awesome print for Professor Quirrell in Voldemort. What was really interesting is at the time, the Lego toys that came out in 2001, some of them spoiled the end of the film for people who hadn't read the books. And this is an example of that. This set having come out, if you bought the set before knowing the ending, it was suddenly revealed. And the mirror here kind of used a fun play feature. This is kind of one of those like 3D effects where here you see Harry, but if you turn it, he's holding the Philosopher's Stone. This is really common in the late 90s, early 2000s for kids things, mostly like on like bookmarks or things like that. But also, what could happen is you could rotate the mirror, and that is where the Philosopher's Stone was actually being held. And in 2001, we also got the mirror in this like random Hogwarts classroom set. And it was actually a really cool sticker piece. There you can see where Harry Potter's looking in the mirror. And in the background, you can see James and Lily, and they are kind of more translucent. So it was really cool how there was, a different technique used to display Harry versus his parents here on the mirror. With the 2018 Lego Harry Potter Great Haul, we got 4 sticker prints for the Mirror of Erised. First, I want to point out how there's just you can see it says Erised there, and there's just a really cool frame here in 2018. And then you can see Harry with his James and Lily. And then we also see Ron when he looked in the mirror as head boy. And then here on the back, we also see Dumbledore looking in the mirror, as well as Professor Quirrell with the Sorcerer's Stone. Quite interesting to me that we did not get Harry with the stone. And that makes sense because the 2018 Hogwarts Castle system did not really focus on the tasks or challenges at the end of the first book and film. And then, of course, here at the top of the Hogwarts Castle main tower set from 2025, we have the Mirror of Erised. Here you can see it is showing Harry Potter. I'm trying to get my camera out of frame. It is showing Harry Potter as well as the Philosopher's Stone. What I really like about this mirror is on the top, it has the phrase, I show not your face, but what the heart desires, or as opposed what your heart desires. And then if you flip this, you can also again see kind of Harry there and his parents. And I like that they gave it a little bit of a chamber here. The mirror can be removed, so it is nice to, if you want to add this kind of to the basement near the wizarding chest, we can kind of turn this into another room here in Hogwarts. And I think for me, one thing that's really cool about the mirror is we can see so many different techniques that were used to represent what the mirror does. Of course, we have the original version where you have kind of that ability to move, or it looks like it moves kind of when you change the angle. But we've always gotten, even since the early 2001, just some really cool sticker pieces that you can show all the different images that people who look into the mirror and what they see. The strongest is from 2018, so it's kind of extra strange that this Hogwarts Castle wave didn't in any way focus on the chamber, the Philosopher's Stone or the Sorcerer's Stone. But I also really like kind of some of the changes that were made for the actual mirror, kind of what it's holding it here in the 2025 version. So overall, I'm really happy with each of these, and it is a scene that keeps getting remade. One of my favorite Lego Harry Potter scenes of all time is the Chamber of Secrets, which obviously we got in 2001. We saw again in 2021. So I'm very hopeful that our next Hogwarts Castle system build, which will probably be the bridge or the viaduct, I hope that includes the Chamber of Secrets, as I'd love to get a new well fleshed out version of the chamber. And then I can compare it to the other two, which I thought both were pretty strong. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to stay updated with LEGO leaks, rumors, news, and reviews, hit the subscribe button down below. Let me know down in the comments which of these tasks you think are best with each iteration of the Hogwarts Castle system. So we have, of course, the Fluffy's Encounter, we have the Devil's Snare, we have the Room of Winged Keys, and kind of like the Wizarding Chest and that like final chamber with Quirrell as well in the Philosopher's Stone. So let me know what you think down in the comments, and I will check you all out next time. Thank you.